Hi, my name is Rod Sowden from Aspire Europe Limited. This is a little video which is part of our Competent Vision and Outcomes Management course. And we'd just like to stand back and think about the role of powerful visions in delivering successful programs and look at it from a slightly different angle. At some point in history, somebody stood back and looked at the desert and thought, do you know what? It'd be great to have some pointy things out there. Yep. So what kind of imagination did the pharaohs, whoever it was, or an engineer or a guy just wandering across the desert, when they looked at that blank scenery and came up with this amazing vision and concept? What were they thinking about when they did that? Now, that seems a far cry from what we do in program management. I'll grant you, we don't always see the world that way, and a lot of the stuff we talk aspirationally about visions, but once we see them in the real world, it's much more like a to-do list or a bunch of management waffle. But when you think about how inspirational a vision can be and the effect it can have on the community, whether that community is the workforce in the program, whether it's the stakeholder around it, but when a program is inspirational, it can have so much effect. Now, one of the things we always need to be aware of is you could argue that any fool can come up with a crazy image. Yeah. So when we're thinking about our vision, we not only need to have something that's inspirational and aspirational, we need to be able to back it up. Because if somebody says to you, so what? We need to be able to go, haha, but this is how it's going to work. So in the case of our pointy things in the middle of the desert, whatever the pharaoh was called that came up with this idea, there was more to it. Obviously, it was a burial chamber. It was to glorify themselves in the past for generations to come. And can you imagine how much work these things would be? It took them hundreds of years to build these things. So a vision needs to be more than just a pointy thing in a desert. It needs to have been thought through about how you're going to get there. Now, in the context of program management, that's what we call our outcomes. Yeah. So it's not a pointy thing in a desert. It's the ability to provide these wonderful burial facilities for these pharaohs. And of course, the belief that you can build it. So you need to have some substance behind what you're saying. So a couple of points that we'd like to make just at this moment about visions. First of all, they need to have imagination. Just doing more of the same or repeating some management waffle or some political dialogue's not enough to inspire people. You need something better. Yes, something that people can buy into. Something that's got some strategic context. Just building pointy things in the desert isn't enough. It needs to have a purpose. When we're thinking about our program, about what we're aspiring to do, it's not just about imagination. We need to have context, that it's fitting into some bigger picture maybe. Maybe it's not the whole big picture, it fits somewhere else. So we need that strategic context. And it needs to be achievable. I can't really imagine how somebody convinced somebody they could build these huge things in the desert, but people have got to believe they can get there with this vision. So when we're thinking about this stuff, we need to use imagination, we need to have context, and we need to believe that it's achievable. Otherwise, people call it pie in the sky. Okay, let's go back to our desert, somewhere else in the Middle East now. We're looking, somebody else was sat there looking at a piece of desert going, what could we possibly do with this? Now, bringing this much more up to date, I've just got nothing but admiration for the people that sat there and looked at this kind of landscape and came up with the idea that you could turn it into the most fantastic sports arenas and that you could even dream of putting a World Cup out there in Qatar. So when we're looking at this stuff, again, in this case, they had a dream. They had this amazing vision that you could play football in some of the most inhospitable climates. The first question, how on earth can you play football in the middle of a desert, you know, in all that heat? Well, they kind of thought it through and they believed that they could do it. And here you can see the template, if you like, for how they were going to get the temperature down inside those stadiums. And they managed to convince the world it was possible, didn't they? When they were allocated the World Cup for 2022, they managed to achieve that They managed to create this view that this was an inspirational project that they were going to deliver, and it needed football to back it up. The other thing, of course, it was inspirational for the nation, for Qatar to win the World Cup, to give them that kind of national pride, that place on the global stage where they could be seen as a truly great nation. So they achieved that inspirational thing. Yeah, they managed to convince FIFA that it was believable. Well, we know now, a few years on, that it wasn't actually. It had to be the games have had to be moved to the winter because, in truth, even though they convinced people it was achievable and believable, it wasn't actually deliverable. But the fact was, they created this vision that people believed in, and they still got the World Cup. So you just got to admire their achievement in that way. And basically, people have been supporting it. Now, if you're thinking about this in terms of your own program, your vision statement or vision, it needs to be inspirational, but it needs to be believable. And people need to be willing to stand behind this. So they believe in it, but they're going to support it. So if we think about the Qatar World Cup, FIFA got behind it and supported it. And clearly, a vast number of nations around the world were willing to take a chance on it because they voted for Qatar to win the World Cup and host it. But for your program, we need stakeholders on board. So they need to be able to believe that they can take the risk of going after this dream that you've put in front of them. Okay. Well, I hope that gives you a slightly different view on visions, rather than the kind of mechanical, sometimes mundane things we deal with in our programs about business change. But they have a role and they're really important. And we're not suggesting that you're going to think about pointy things in the desert or putting World Cups in, but I hope that they actually help you understand how crucial the vision is to pulling the program together and all the stakeholders and pointing them in a direction that they may not have thought of or may be challenging to them. So, hope you found that useful. Rob Southern signing off. Go and enjoy a cup of coffee and reflect on what we've said.